one's perspective and being a product of your environment kind of shapes how you look at life, how you perceive, what you would like to become, or what sort of opportunities may be before you. Before I get any further, I feel the need to respect the original people of this land. I came to be a steward and a trustee of my people and the land where the bones of my ancestors lay. And so I know there's bones here in this rich land. It's been transformed. But those people, I have to honor them, and I have to honor some of the remnants of the people from the Lower Columbia are with also another partner. The Quinault Nation has a lot of people that didn't do so well with the smallpox that hit this area really bad. But as far as history and what we look at, and some of the things that have been said about people that have real deep vision, one of the, I think, virtues and values of long-term observation and knowing what it means to keep the living breath of your ancestors alive gives you a lot more of a time frame, way old, knowing who you are and where you come from, long-term observation of the habitat of your culture and the longevity of your heritage can give you a perspective to look and think even farther ahead into the future so that we can begin to understand what does it mean to be a good ancestor. The time we spend on this planet with each other and with the rest of creation, what do we leave behind? Do we leave behind something better than what we inherited? Do we leave behind something richer and more meaningful? Do we leave behind something more of a community of all of us here? We're all a part of the situation. We can go on and on about what's going on, we all know that. But understanding that we are a part of the situation, therefore we're a part of the solution. We have an opportunity to be a part of the solution. And there isn't one brand, there isn't one company, there isn't one organization that's going to do it. We have to do it together. And as far as how we do it together, it's how we keep an open mind. I've said it before in other circles where we have to think outside the box. A lot of the problems we're facing have been constructed in a very siloed system. A lot of the conservation agendas out there have been out of necessity, but some of them have been dogmatic and become pious and become inflexible to the realities of an ecology that is changing. Some of the things I've been talking about and looking at most recently in the Puget Sound area is the fact that there might have been 100,000 returning adults of Chinook salmon in one river back in the 70s. There might have been a community of 20 seals and sea lions at the mouth of that river. That river might have supported about 50,000 toilets. Now, today, 30, 40 years later, that river has 100,000 toilets. That river has 20,000 returning adult Chinook salmon and maybe 200 seals and sea lions at the mouth of that river. Our ecosystem's out of balance. Climate change is a factor, but it's not a reason to be hysterical about how do we address the other issues in integrated resource management. So we're coming out of an age where a lot of environmental laws were put in place for real good reason, but we're in an age where those laws have to be looked at a little bit differently. We have to be adaptive, we have to be flexible. My people have been adaptive and flexible. We've had to pick up the pieces after single species exploitation. We've had to pick up the pieces in our environment. We gave the United States the right to hunt and fish in common with us. We reserved those rights. We saw our traditional territory that became an adjudicated space where we could go with the wind, we can go with the migrations, go to the Bering Sea and bring back dancing techniques from our brothers and sisters up there. We can go to the Fraser River. But as people start to identify monetary values to resources, monetary values to single elements of ecosystems, we became put into a box. Whatever happens inside that box is something that made me feel even more inspired, but even a sense of even greater responsibility that what happens to that box is the future of my people. And when you see real extreme right and left agendas that have no real relativity to what's important to me, the treaties also gave the United States government, or the United States government promised to assume the trust responsibility for my people and my way of life, our access to treaty resources, our ability to be a functioning element of the ecosystem. Our traditional territory is the habitat of our culture, a living culture. When the trust responsibility to safeguard that becomes reckless and irresponsible, we've seen the hysteria in Washington, D.C., and all the funding that people depend on. The most disproportionately affected funding levels are for Indian people and Indian programs. So the federal government's supposed to be a trustee for protecting our way of life, supposed to be a trustee for helping us co-manage things, and when they become so dysfunctional, they're no longer a good trustee. So it was not very long in my service for my people that I decided we have to become the trustee. Federal family can't be depended on. We can't rely on the federal family. We have to restore that. So we have this area of this government-to-government relationship that tribes have been put into. We started out as equals with the executive branch and entering into these treaties, but then they made us reservation governments, not sovereigns. So then it's up to us to redefine that. It's up to us to look at how do we build bridges and find that common ground. And so there's a story that one of my cousins told me, and it's kind of a metaphor, but I think it's something that's really fitting for what we have right now. We have a diversity of people here in this room. We all carry water in our bodies. How much percentage of it is in our body weight? What is it, like 97% water? So we know we carry water in our bodies, that we are not just functioning elements of the ecosystem as people, but we are also part of the hydrological cycle of the planet. That there's water molecules that our ancestors carried collectively. I might be carrying water that one of your ancestors carried. But there was a time, I'll make it quick. There was a time when there was this mountaintop and the flood was coming. All these animals were crowding on this mountaintop. It became an island, and the island was getting smaller and smaller. And then it became really crowded, and there was a sense of panic, and a spirit of panic rushed through all the bodies of the animals. And they all cried up to the Lord in the same voice, the same language. And the water kept rising, but this time it rose in a cylinder. So now all these animals are surrounded by this great wall of water. And so then when the water stopped rising, there was a message back in the same voice, in the same language that these animals all cried for salvation. And in that voice and that message said that the carnivores must live in peace with the herbivores. The plant eaters must live in peace with the meat eaters. And as long as they lived peacefully together while they were confined on that mountaintop, they could safely reach through the wall of water and eat seaweed and eat fish. And so I think, we're at a point in our life where we've seen the greatest oil spill on the planet still hemorrhaging into the atmosphere. It doesn't escape. It manifests itself in ocean acidification. We have to not be hysterical about how we move forward. We have to find the common ground and realize that we're all brothers and sisters, that we have to recognize there are opportunities, there are strategies, there are ways to work with the family of governments, including tribes. And I look forward to seeing, the development of new strategies and new opportunities, because we have to take action and we have to be careful about it and we have to be swift. Thank you.